Change the World. I Am Gandhi by Brad Meltzer, illustrated by Christopher Eliopoulos. After the video, stay tuned for reading questions and activity ideas and visit laurenmartinbooks.com for more free learning resources. Please like, share, and subscribe to Lauren Martin Books for more read-along stories. Now, let's read about Gandhi. I am Gandhi. Today, people call me strong, unafraid, unstoppable. I wasn't always that way. As a child growing up in India, I was shy, afraid of the dark. I was also afraid of snakes. Can you tell I was small? I spent most of my time with books. I wasn't good at sports like soccer. In fact, I'd run home after school afraid that people would make fun of me. But I liked taking nice, long walks. Even with all my books, I wasn't a great student. I was bad at multiplication. And one day, when I got one of our spelling words wrong, the teacher pointed to another boy's paper. I didn't think that was the right thing to do. That's not how you learn. When the teacher scolded me, I wasn't bothered. In my life, I did not copy others' work. However, there was one story that was worth copying. It was a play I read in school about a man named Shravan Kumar. Shravan was so devoted to his parents that when they were too old to travel, he literally carried them on his back. It was an example I wanted to follow, one person carrying others who needed help. My father had a good job. He was a political leader, but there were many who had no jobs. They were the poorest of the poor. They were treated terribly and had the worst jobs. There were even different laws that applied to them. Back then, the British were so powerful, they ruled India. To get a good job like my father, I eventually moved to London, England, and became a lawyer. I even dressed up really fancy, trying to look rich and more British. When I moved back to India, I had my first case in court. This was the moment I had trained for. All I had to do was question the witness. The moment I stood up, my heart sank to my boots. It was like the room was spinning. I sat back down without a word. That was my first case. I completely failed. Luckily, I got offered a new case in a country called South Africa. I was excited to try again. As I took the last part of my journey by train, a white passenger noticed me. He didn't like me because I was Indian. My skin was brown and his was white. Believe it or not, he had the law on his side. The train official asked me to leave. He said that if I didn't leave, he'd call the police. Yes, you may, I told him. I refused to get out voluntarily. A policeman pushed me out of the train and tossed my stuff onto the station platform. It was cold in the station and dark. I could have gotten back on the train and sat in third class. Instead, I stayed there all night shivering. I also meditated, which is when you close your eyes and try to focus your mind. To finish the trip, I took a horse-drawn carriage, but once again, because of my skin color, they didn't let me inside with the white passengers. The driver hit me in the ears and tried to drag me down. I never hit him back, but I refused to let go. Eventually, he gave up. But this is how Indians were treated back then. To change it, I knew I had to take action. I had to fight, even if it meant suffering hardship. Within a week, I held a meeting for my fellow Indians in South Africa. It was the first public speech of my life. I focused on the truth. After the speech, we all had a discussion. There are times to talk, but there is also real power in listening. Soon after, I decided to stay in South Africa and form the Natal Indian Congress to help Indians there become more active in the government. But the most important thing I did there was come up with Satyagraha. In Sanskrit, it combines the word satya, which means truth, with agraha, which means firmness or force. Indeed, Satyagraha was my truth force. Satyagraha was how we'd fight against the unfair treatment of Indians. Was I perfect? No. Sometimes I lost my temper, but that's when I figured out the best way to fight, by transforming myself and being the best person I could be. In no time at all, I tested out Satyagraha. A new law was passed that would kick Indians out of South Africa unless they registered with the government. Police could stop us on the street and search our homes any time they wanted. For breaking that law, they put me in prison for 2 months. They put me there again for breaking another law, one that said Indians couldn't travel to certain areas. You know what's even stronger than that? People working together. Soon we started more settlements and farms where those who practiced Satyagraha could live in simple life and peace. As our peace army grew, so did our strength. When the South African government made Indians pay more taxes than the white residents and refused to improve the safety of coal miners, we decided to protest by striking. It was just like Thoreau taught. Instead of using violence to protest the unfair rules, Indian people used a peaceful method. No one went to work at the coal mines. Without workers, the coal companies would go out of business. Now, the only question was, would it succeed? It took years, but the South African government passed the Indian Relief Act of 1914, improving the lives of many Indians. After 21 years, it was time to take what I had learned in South Africa back to my home in India. India was still being run by the British, who treated us terribly, and worst of all, Indians still treated some other Indians terribly too. To protest the unfair British laws in India, we held another strike. For one full day, no one went to work. All of India, every shop, farm, restaurant closed down. The soldiers attacked the crowd. Over 1,000 were injured. Hundreds were killed. They hit us hard. It was tempting to hit them back, but violence will never get you what you want. As the head of our own organization, the Indian National Congress, I called for massive boycotts, which meant we would stop going to British schools and stop working for British employees. I had to make sure that as many people as possible heard my message. To do that, I relied on the same things when I was younger. I walked. Only by standing together, rich and poor, could we be free from the unfair government. Only united are we unstoppable. That didn't mean everyone was on my side. Even though my work against the government was peaceful, the British again put me in prison, this time for 6 years. I smiled as they took me to jail. But within 2 years, I got sick there. The government knew people would be enraged if something happened to me, so they let me out. I went right back to my mission. The British government still wouldn't leave India. They passed new laws called the Salt Tax, which said Indians couldn't make or sell our own salt. We had to buy it from the British. How could we convince the British? We marched. On March 12, 1930, 78 people joined me as we headed toward the sea. I was 60 years old, walking 240 miles, 10 miles each day for nearly a month. The farther we walked, the more people joined us. They poured water on our paths to keep the dust down. They tossed flowers and leaves to make it easier to walk on. The crowd soon ballooned to thousands, stretching back for 2 miles. Reporters around the world told our story. 24 days later, we reached our destination, the village of Gandhi, near the Arabian Sea. There, I gave my signal to the nation. I picked up a handful of salt left by the waves. That's it. I never raised my fists. I never carried a weapon. But in that act, holding salt that wasn't bought from the British government, I fought back. I broke the law, with the entire world watching. Soon after, I was arrested again. But over the next few days, thousands of Indians broke the same law. Just a few clumps of salt united our people and made the whole world realize how poorly the British were treating us. From there, it still took years, but we were on our way to India becoming a free country. My struggles weren't done, though. Remember the untouchables? The poorest of the poor? They were still suffering. I was in jail, but I could act. They could lock me up, they could put me in the dark, but they could never, ever defeat me. In my life, I was the small one, the skinny one, the poor one, even the shy one, but I was never the weak one. Over many years, I had many fights, but to fight by purposely avoiding violence, to refuse to raise your fist no matter what is raised against you, some would call that foolish, madness, but what it really is courage. Strength doesn't come from the size of your body, it comes from the size of your heart. Show love, especially when you want to fight unfairness. You must help others who are in need. Carry them on your shoulders. Speak up for them when they don't have a voice. Hold true to your beliefs. I am Gandhi, and in a gentle way, I will shake the world. Who did you learn about in this book? What are they famous and most known for? What did they do to accomplish their goals and change the world for the better? What challenges, obstacles, or difficulties did they overcome to achieve their dreams and make the world a better place? What can you learn from them? What are your goals and dreams? What can you do to make the world a better place in big ways and small, everyday ways? What challenges might you need to overcome, and how can you overcome them with the help of others or with the help of your own determination and hard work? Write or draw what you learned about the historical figure in this book and their achievements, and think about what you can learn from them about accomplishing your dreams and changing the world for the better. You can even write or draw your own plan of action to achieve your goals and make the world a better place. Please like, share, and subscribe to Lauren Martin Books for more read-along stories. Visit laurenmartinbooks.com for more books and free learning resources. Thank you for reading with me.